We are back. It's the Joe Holker Show presented by PrizePicks. Locks of the Thanksgiving slate, position by position. These are players that we have to have exposure to on DraftKings. I think a better 3-game slate on Thanksgiving than we've had in quite some time. So excited to talk about these games with you. But let's just jump right into it, man. Let's talk about the quarterback position first, because I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards one guy. So I'll let you take the wheel here. What are you thinking about Dak Prescott?
The fact that he's facing the Washington Commanders,
Correct.
the end statement. like, look what Tommy DeVito did just against them. And then, like, we're all saying in fantasy world, we're like, take it with a grain of salt. DeVito was facing the Commanders, but like, okay, so all right, well, we don't care about that, but we do care the fact that Dak Prescott is facing the Commanders. And Dak Prescott has been on fire. I mean, honestly, if you look at his game log, the Carolina, actually, I think I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, Carolina's defense got sneakily better, similar to the Titans about the middle of the season. It's not scary, but they also didn't need him in that game. They won 33-10, but he went off against the Giants. I mean, like, you look at this game log here, You got 41, 31, 32, 24, the down games at San Francisco. And then you have teens before that, but that was all that teens before that was basically once he hit the Commanders game, and then that bye is when he really took off. And again, the Commanders can't stop anybody against the pass. Like, this is already a team that we exploited to begin with, and then when they traded away their two pieces with Sweat and just after Chase Young, it's just been obliterated, as seen with Tommy DeVito. So 6,800, and I'm saying all this to set this part up, 6,800 on a normal slate. I'd be like, this is mispriced. This is stupid. So I have a feeling that, like, we usually talk that quarterback's flat. I have a feeling this is going to be like massive Dak, and then maybe a sprinkle of the other people.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if in small field Dak is 50+%. But yeah, just looking at the Fantasy Life Game Hub here and a couple of these matchups, points per game, 32nd in the league. Total yards against, 32nd in the league. Net passing yards against, 31st in the league. Missed tackle rate, 32nd in the league. Yards per attempt allowed, 28th in the league. So yeah, just an absolute smash spot. Hopefully we still get that volume for Dak that we've been getting over the last couple weeks, but it's been going pretty well for them. So hard to see them, I guess, going any different direction, especially in this spot. So I guess we'll frame it this way. If you were to pay down, which quarterback are you looking at outside of Dak if you wanted to get a little bit different?
That's exactly how I was looking at this, and pay down quite a bit. I would actually go down to Jordan Love. I know Jordan Love was extremely frustrating. It was trash. Let's be honest about it. It was trash for a while there. The beginning of the season, it was offset by the touchdowns for his inaccuracy, but he's got it together of late. And I'm looking at specifically another matchup here. And Detroit Lions, a lot of people might think the Detroit Lions are worrisome because they do have Hutchinson and a few pieces on defense. But we just had Justin Herbert throw 4 touchdowns against them. You had Justin Fields in his first game back, 169-1, but of course he ran for 104. And not that I think that Jordan Love is going to, but Jordan Love does bring a rushing aspect. Some of his games that he was able to have decent performances in was because he got a rushing touchdown. He had 357-3 from Lamar Jackson through the air against Detroit. And the big part about it is Detroit forces other offenses to pass more, to play up tempo a little bit more. This is indoors, which is good. This is because we want this for the Packers. So all that being said, if that's where I had to pay down, it would be for Love. And if you look at his last 2 games, 18.6 and 23.8, it's not Dak. But that game was at Pittsburgh, and then the Chargers defense, I think that 23, 24, 25 is what you could hope for here if you want to build a little bit of a contrarian lineup.
All right, really quick before I forget, we are going to be doing a bonus live stream Thanksgiving morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Myself and Rich Rebar is going to join us to break down all the matchups from the Thanksgiving games. We're going to build some lineups, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys will join us right on this YouTube channel. Of course, don't forget, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll see you guys tomorrow. While we're here, let's talk PrizePicks for 2 seconds. Obviously, we have this nice promo for Christian McCaffrey, over 1.5 rush yard plus receiving yard, and you win. So that's your Thanksgiving free square. You can use code Holka and get access to that promo and get your free $100 bet along the way. We got a couple collabs going. Obviously, the video that's going to drop later today with Ryan Hodge. We have Juwan Jennings less than 15.5 receiving yards. And then Jake's got a couple for us here as well. We had a collab on Twitter with Sal Vetri. We did take the David Montgomery over, or sorry, that's yours, Jake. We took the Tyler Lockett over 48.5 receiving yards and the AJ Dillon 47.5 rushing yards. Love the AJ Dillon stuff, which I think is another direction. Without Aaron Jones, could be a lot of love on the ground, could also be a lot of AJ Dillon. So I would grab this one before it moves as well. And then go ahead and check out that giveaway on Twitter, my Twitter and Sal Vetri's Twitter. Get access to that if we sweep between the Lockett and Dylan props here. But yeah, buried the lead here, Jake. You have David Montgomery over 12.5 fantasy points, and then you wanted to give us like a full week sweat here, right? So let's just say this scenario, we go 5 for 5 on Thanksgiving, right? We got the McCaffrey, we got the Jennings, we got the Montgomery, we got the Lockett, we got the Dylan. You gave us a Raheem Mostert 58.5 rushing yards. So you just want
it's already up a yard since I pulled. Yeah, that's that's a tell. We talked about your newsletter and earlier in the week and finding these ones. I only put Mostert in there this morning, and it's already gone up a yard. It's probably, I actually bet it. So there you go. I probably moved it a little bit. Like, it really comes down to, so there's two that I like. I wanted to give a longer week one too, just in case if you want to extend it all the way, or if you just want to focus after Thanksgiving or whatever. Sure. I just want to include it both. But 57.5, Achane banged up. Even if he's in, still Mostert in this matchup is a terrific spot for him to hit that over, whether or not Achane's out there, and Jeff Wilson, whatever it might be. This feels like an easy smash. I almost considered Mostert rushing and receiving, but then I looked at the receiving. It's been a little inconsistent, but I love the 57.5. For Thanksgiving only, it's David Montgomery, and it's not even just the rushing or the receiving. The easiest one for him that I saw was the 12.5. 12.5 fantasy points. Do you know how many times he's hit the over? All but one. The only time he didn't hit 12.5 was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense. That's the only game he hasn't hit the over on 12.5. By the way, this defense has also given up 7 performances of 12.5. Like, this 12.5, I double take this one to make sure, like, is that his receiving yards? And I'm just looking at this wrong. 12.5 feels like the smashiest of smashes this week.
Yeah, I've got it closer to 14 on mine, but you could make an argument for the ceiling to be much higher than that, honestly, like 20+% or 20+ points. I think that a lot of people in DFS going to go the Gibbs direction, which we'll talk about in a second. But if you're just trying to get a little bit of access to Montgomery, 12.5 does certainly feel too low.
Well, if you start with, against Green Bay, it was 37.1. And I know that wasn't Gibbs a lot in that game, but since that week 4 is 37.1, 23.9. The Tampa Bay game, 20.6, 17.5. Even if you take his benchmark water low, which the Bears, I've mentioned to you before, their run stuff percentages, they're actually tops in the league. And it's continued every single week that they're tops in run stuff percentage. They're not avoid at all costs, but they are a little bit worrisome against the run. So that's actually a nice performance for him to be able to do that against the Bears, and that's why I bring that up. Okay. But point being, you're getting 5.5 almost fantasy points free for his low-end watermark since week 4. Like, I just...
Love it. Okay, well, there you go.
I'm so excited that my screen is blooming.
Thanksgiving here. I'm coming for you, though, Jake. If we go 5 for 5 on Thanksgiving, and for some reason this Mostert one doesn't hit, I'm coming for you. But yeah, I think you can get $25 down on this max bet with the McCaffrey included. So turn 25 into 625 seems like a pretty good deal to me. Let's talk about that backfield a little bit more, though, in Detroit. Gibbs is 6,800, and I think this is one of the ones that I think people are going to gravitate towards in game number 1. And we do talk about it in that way, right? So it's the Thanksgiving slate, obviously late swap. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the tournament video with Hodge, but you really want to look at these as game number 1, game number 2, and game number 3, and taking late swap into consideration. So in game number 1, sounds like you're still willing to take a chance on 6,800 Gibbs this week.
Yeah, the price is low enough that, Gibbs for his performance of recent, and we go through the game log, 21.5, 26.2, 32.9, 27.6. Oh, by the way, 27.6 against the Baltimore Ravens. We brought that back up a few weeks ago. I said, hell, if you can do that against the Ravens, I'm going to trust you any given week. The split is there, but they're using him as like the guy with David Montgomery kind of as the timeshare piece. It's kind of more 60-40 leaning towards Gibbs. You have the passing game. You have this matchup against Green Bay that is not worrisome at all. And I'm just looking at 6,800 versus Tony Pollard. I know Tony Pollard's fine, but you're talking about 50% of the work. He finally got a touchdown last week, his first since week 1. And oh, by the way, same matchup since week 1. And not that I'm worried about Washington, but when I talk about the usage and the touches per game, I mean, Gibbs over Pollard. Montgomery, like, honestly, I'd rather Montgomery for the fact that it's just if I'm going for a pay up option, and then the problem is, as I get right into the next option here, is you got Kenneth Walker, who's out, Aaron Jones, who's out. So basically, if you don't pay up, you're dropping all the way down into the A.J. Dillon, Charbonnet conversation to take the mic from you on this one. But that's why if my pay down option, which also happens to be the third game, is the Charbonnet at 5,300. You lose a little bit of flexibility because it's 53 and not the 6K range. Maybe if you want to head into that with Christian McCaffrey, if you want to build that kind of lineup with McCaffrey and Charbonnet, that'll give you a lot of flexibility, which I can see the strategy for doing that. But I know people see San Francisco and they're like, oh my God, San Francisco, I don't want to start anybody against them. So I get the AJ Dillon play, but I look at it two different ways. Is like Charbonnet has been explosive in the passing game. He has some inconsistent options, like maybe DJ Dallas sprinkles in a little bit, but you're getting the volume of Dillon on a more explosive player. And San Francisco has still been really good, but they've been beatable at times from explosive players. So I think a part of it is I think that if people are looking for the 54 or 53, this range, everybody's going to Dillon.
Yep.
And I kind of like Charbonnet for the pivot as well as the fact that he's the late game.
Yeah, I could see Charbonnet getting a little bit of steam for that reason, like obviously the more explosive player. But what I really like about even just the Charbonnet combo with CMC is the flexibility, obviously. So if you're just looking at like what is the leverage in game number 3, say that you really need to give yourself a chance, you made a couple plays that didn't go so well in game number 1 and game number 2, you can easily pivot to like a George Kittle at like sub 15% ownership. You could really just pivot to like an Elijah Mitchell at 4,200 and pay up somewhere else, right? So like even just having Charbonnet and CMC in your lineup together just gives you a really nice spot to where you can pivot away from a lot of ownership and just move into some other players at the higher end. If maybe you back into Brandon Ayuk, who's kind of priced at a weird spot at 7K for this 3-game slate. So there's a lot of options and a lot of things you can do if you get those guys in there. So I like that quite a bit. So let's talk about wide receivers though. And if we're going to be talking about Dak, we're going to be talking about CD and then some of those other weapons as well. So CD 8,700. I think that's my preference still over Amon-Ra this week. Would you be in the same position there?
I am. It comes down to the matchup. It comes down to CeeDee Lamb has been on a tear as much as anybody, as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you're talking about matchup specifically too. Is that Green Bay is beatable, but who's more beatable? It's Washington. And if I'm going to pay up with Dak, the only thing that I can't get away from is part of the fact that Jared Goff's been inconsistent. Not that it affects Amon-Ra St. Brown, but here I'm giving you my thought process here. So it's like, I love Dak. I compare with, I haven't got all the way through it, but I compare with Lamb, and I think we can get a lineup with him. I know I could get Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's just not as appealing given the two choices because I don't want to use Amon-Ra St. Brown if I'm not going to stack that game, which means I'm going to go to Love. So like, you see what I'm like, I'm not going to go to Goff. Goff's inconsistency is starting to worry me. It's just, I know he can go off for 4 touchdowns any single game, but actually the past 4 games have been in the teens and like just over 20. It's just not been the ceiling of Dak, and it hasn't been too different from Jordan Love. So if I'm going for the top end, I'm going for CeeDee Lamb, who just, you want to talk about a bounce back week coming? Like, he had a little bit of an off game. Well, we're talking about somebody who was over 100 yards every single week. So I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. And I don't mind it if we're going to, again, to talk about it, to stack this with Brandon Cooks. I think a lot of people are going to be on Brandon Cooks, and for good reason. You're looking for big plays. He's out there more than Michael Gallup. He's been used a little bit more than Michael Gallup. And at 4,500, if you're looking for him to just break one, you get a touchdown in that game. The interesting one, and I know why he wasn't on PrizePicks. I immediately looked for him on PrizePicks because I looked for rushing/receiving for this receiver. That'll give you a big hint. But because of the questionable tag, I think that's the concern. So if healthy, Jaden Reed in that game, who's getting the Deebo Samuel usage once Aaron Jones got hurt, and I don't think he's going to be Deebo Samuel. But what I like from him is he got some carries. He actually got the rushing touchdown. If AJ Dillon's frustrating again, they could use him again. They don't have Emmanuel Wilson. And then on top of that, he was actually out there for the second most routes behind Christian Watson, actually in front of Dobbs. So I still like Dobbs, but he's been out there a lot. He's officially stepped past Christian Watson, who's basically nothing at this point. He finally got a touchdown. Congratulations on his 2 receptions. So Jordan Reed. I miss Jordan Reed. Jaden Reed at 4,200. Like, I love that play. Again, he has to be healthy, but I love that play.
Yeah, the only thing on PrizePicks right now is the over on 1.5 rushing plus receiving touchdown combination with Reed plus Sam Laporta. But yeah, that's kind of interesting.
I thought about that one. I'm not gonna lie.
The touchdown ones are fun. I actually was at the Vikings and Broncos game in Denver last week, and one of the ones that we took on prop drop was the over on a receiving touchdown for Cortland Sutton, or who was the other one? Cortland Sutton or TJ Hawkinson. So Hawkinson even ended up playing a ton in this game, but we kind of got sucked out a little bit at the end when Sutton scored that game-winning touchdown. So not fun as a Vikings fan for that game, but was fun for the props to sweep on that one. So while we're here, Jake, I'm going to transition myself into something that was pretty fun. We mentioned that we had the prop drop sweep last week. We also had a really big week in the college football streets. So if you guys check this out on my Twitter, 5-1 last week, you can get these for free, but also going to do a $50 giveaway to someone who likes this to celebrate. Really nice. Almost went 6 for 6 on this one, which would have been a nice 25x on PrizePicks. And then I left this one open a little bit longer as well. The one that's my pin tweet. 3 people will be getting $100 for this. 68 and 37 so far with prop drop this week or this year, and then 83.3% win rate on the way too early send, which goes out every Wednesday. We went 3 for 4 again in week 11, so that continues to be a really big edge. So there's a link in the description for that. Make sure you get into these 2 giveaways, and then make sure you guys take advantage of that 1 yard free square over at PrizePicks. I think that covers everything. Oh yeah, there's the collab with Sal Vetri. Make sure you check that out. I'll have a post out there as well for a giveaway for the Thanksgiving slate. Whew, that was a mouthful. Too many giveaways, Jake. We got to stop winning so much on prop drop stuff.
Yeah,
so,
no, right.
All right, let's get back into it. And on the tight end side of things, before we build a lineup, there's a couple guys that really stand out. I think if you wanted to stay in this Dallas game, you could. There's also a cheaper option as well. So let's talk about tight end.
Yeah, I think people will be like Kittle, Laporta, but I feel like there's 2. I'm just paying down this week. It's Jake Ferguson. I'm going to continue to hammer Jake Ferguson at 3,900, especially against Washington. I think you can get him in play. But if you can't, and if you want to, look, Musgrave out. So, if you're not going Laporta, Kittle, or if you're not paying down for Ferguson, you're looking for somebody else. I mean, some people might go the Logan Thomas route. I don't love it against Dallas. But if there is no Luke Musgrave, bare min, Tucker Kraft, 2,500, who a lot of people talked about during the draft, and I had a similar. My evaluation is I actually thought Tucker Kraft was the better receiver heading into the NFL immediately.
Interesting.
Wrong on what they thought and their usage so far, but I'm bringing up to say I think he's at least on the field ability-wise of Luke Musgrave. Maybe down the road, maybe they were worried about his blocking, but at bare minimum 2,500. If you're looking for that super pay down, I think he could surprise. If he gets a touchdown, boom, you're basically free money there. So.
Yep.
I think that's interesting. And then, of course, Dallas against Washington defense. Green Bay, I think, is the interesting defense. I'm going to have Green Bay in a lot of spots because Jared Goff and the interceptions and the recklessness of late. He's actually wasn't throwing at the beginning of the year, but was it 3 of the last 4 games? Somewhere in there. He's got an interception roll got to go in there. So I think that one could be interesting.
Okay. Let's jump into the lineup build then. I'm with you on tight end. I think Ferguson might end up being the highest owned just because that $3,900 price tag. Everyone wants to play Dak. Yeah. I think that makes sense. But yeah, by the time we get to tomorrow and lock, I think Tucker Kraft at the min price is just going to be one from a lineup construction standpoint that a lot of people jam in there. So this is what I got locked in so far. I got Dak. I got CD. What else are we doing here?
We do stack of CD. You know what's interesting is I actually built one that I'm going to give it after this because I want to build one with you. I have one for after this. Let's put in Gibbs and Charbonnet because I want to see what that does for us, and then put in the cheap Jaden Reed.
Okay. Because that's what I want to see. Green Bay and Dallas. Yeah. Dallas is going to be pretty chalky. They're expensive. Obviously, a good spot.
Put the Packers in for the flexibility.
Okay, 2,800 for Green Bay.
Put Brandon Cooks in.
I don't think. Cook's probably the second. Actually, probably. If I had to guess, I would say Ferguson probably does end up be significantly higher than Cooks. The Ferguson, Lamb, Dak stack I think will be more popular than Dak, Lamb, Cooks. If I had to guess, but I like that at 4,500.
Yeah. So what do we got now?
Tight end and flex left. We got 54.50 the rest of the way. So we really can do whatever we want at the tight end position. This doesn't have CMC on it yet.
Yeah. So what if we put in Kraft? What does that leave us?
8,400. We just missed CMC on that. So,
but we just missed Amon-Ra. This is what I want to see. I want to see if we can get to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, 100 from Amon-Ra on that one. Yep.
Which
means
I
think that's what I mean. I think that with getting Cooks in there at 4,500 with these other guys that are available for savings, it kind of limits what you can do on getting CMC or one of these other high-end wide receivers.
Yeah. So then I would go with the build that I made.
Okay,
I wanted to see if the St. Brown worked in. I think you could toy with this a little bit. Obviously, if you come down from Gibbs down into David Montgomery right there,
you could do
now
that.
You're opening yourself up to CMC and or Amon-Ra St. Brown in the bring back with the Packers guys. So this is the build I made. I didn't love it because I don't have a bring back on either side. You'll see. So what I ended up doing is Dak.
I don't think that's that relevant.
Yeah. True. But you're not wrong. It depends. I guess I think it kind of depends on your field size, what you're chasing there. So anyway, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. McCaffrey and Charbonnet at running back. So you got that in play, which I like for the late swap. I actually like this lineup a lot now that I did it. Dobbs and Reed for the Packers. You get the two best wide receivers, not Christian Watson. And then Ferguson, Cooks, and the Packers defense, and you're left with 100 on the table.
Ferguson,
and
Cooks,
you've got that
Packers D. Okay.
And you got that late swap to switch to maybe Ayuk, pull out McCaffrey,